This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo, giving you the inside track on all the big talking points from Anfield.
Well, hello and welcome to the latest Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo. I'm your host, Joe Rimmer, and I'm joined by Paul Gorst and Theo Squires, and we're back at Lovelock's coffee shop on Old Haymarket in Liverpool. Lovely spot, isn't it, gents?
Certainly is, yeah. And it's very close to our offices, isn't it, which is Liverpool city centre, which I think sometimes people forget. So here we are in the heart of the city centre, on location, ready to do another Blood Red pod.
Yeah, it's a lovely spot. It's just down the road by, the Ship and Mitre pub, just over the road from there.
See it from here.
Yeah, we can. Theo, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Glad it's not raining today. It's been bucketing down all week, isn't it? So we actually got a sunny walk down. As Gorsty said, not too far from the office. It's nice to be out and about on location once more.
Yeah, it's nice to be on location. I'm going to host today, but someone called me a moderator in the comments, which I quite liked. I'm a moderator. What do you think, Gorsty?
Intermediary.
Yeah. So I'm going to moderate this pod. Anyway, we've got plenty to talk about. We've been busy boys this morning because, Jordan Henderson has kept us busy, Gorsty, in the last few days. But then this morning, we'll start with Fabinho, who David Ornstein at The Athletic saying that Saudi clubs are considering a 40 million bid for Fabinho. He's probably not what we expected. I think we expected speculation around Thiago, maybe about Henderson, but not so much about Fabinho. But I mean, what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's one that you can terms breaking, isn't it? Because it's just as we were meant to be recording this pod, it came out and we had to push a few things back. It's an interesting one. I wonder how much of it is linked to the Thiago offer that was snubbed earlier this month. We don't actually know who that was, what club it was, and David Ornstein has reported today that it's Al Ittihad who've come in with weighing up a potential 40 million offer to Liverpool for Fabinho. At the age of 29, and the price that Liverpool will be getting for him, and there's question marks. I think I said on the pod last week, I'm still not convinced that he's over the worst of his form. Given those question marks, I wonder whether it actually might be a good deal for Liverpool. It's probably a little bit of a big if, actually, the way Liverpool works sometimes, if it was to be reinvested in another high-class, experienced, quality midfielder. Now, links to Romeo Lavia, probably not that, are they? He's a 19-year-old, he's had one season in the Premier League with Southampton, and the talk of Southampton asking for silly money, really, given the age and lack of experience. So I wouldn't suggest that should be a like-for-like move, but if Liverpool can identify someone who is gettable to replace Fabinho at those sorts of prices, I'd be tempted to gamble, to be honest. But that's just my thinking. Theo might have a different view, but certainly it's an interesting one, isn't it? And a pivotal few weeks for Liverpool now with Henderson and Fabinho, and given the way that the Saudi leagues are moving this summer, who else is going to come, in line for the next few weeks? Not necessarily Liverpool players, but across the Premier League and across Europe.
I mean, they've shaken up this market. I mean, it started with Cristiano Ronaldo, didn't it? But now it feels like they're making bids for not just players at the end of their careers, but Fabinho's 29. He still features in almost all of Liverpool's matches. It's just completely shaken up the market, hasn't it, Theo? And probably isn't something Liverpool will have prepared for.
Yeah, we've got to remember the three players that have been linked with these Saudi moves. They started the Champions League final 2 years ago. Even when Liverpool weren't at their best in midfield, the talk was still go back to that trio. It's still your first choice midfield until you broke it down and realised probably we'll need that succession rate. But they are still three.
Sorry to interrupt, but this time last year we were talking about that three hadn't really started together very often. And they started the first game of the season, didn't they, before Thiago broke down? Am I right in saying that? Fulham?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And I remember us all being quite excited at them three starting together and thinking that could be the midfield going forward. Sorry, Theo.
And then they came back in, it would have been January, February times, thinking, they've had so many struggles, so many woes in midfield. At least they've got these three back. They can be the solution. And it might have been the Wolves Anfield FA Cup game, and it just didn't work. And it's like, it's the first game, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt next time out. And that might have been the Brighton thrashing or something like that. And then it's like, something is clearly broken here. And that's when Bajcetic came in. So like you go back to your strongest trio and it didn't work. It's like, Liverpool are going to have to look for the future. They've done that by bringing in Szoboszlai and McAllister. Yeah. But this has still changed the landscape completely. Like you'd still expect Fabinho to have been first choice this season. Granted, maybe a lance chance saloon for him, but 29, you're hoping that in the new formation with fresh legs around him, younger players, you can still get another couple of years out of him at the highest level. And you judge him in pre-season now if you're those coaches. You see what his results are in all the fitness tests, when he's clubs up to the monitors, doing the lactate test and all of this, going, has he still got it in the locker? And if not, it's a very tempting offer. You're selling him for more than the initial fee you banked in the first place back in 2018 when he's won every single major prize. But it's not the case of Henderson goes, it's fourth or fifth choice anyway. You've already got players ahead of him in the pecking order. Who could you get will be that number 6? I'm not convinced by Lavia as the understudy to him. As I said last week, when you've got Besetic there already, I'm certainly not convinced by him going in straight away, be your starting number 6. You're hoping maybe that you get 40 million for him, you get how much for Henderson, you go to Brighton. Do you fancy selling us Caicedo as well? Because he is that great number 6 who is essentially 2 players on the pitch. That's what it feels like. And that's what Fabinho was when Liverpool first signed him. But there's still Chelsea in the market there, and all these other clubs are interested. United were talked about before they finally got Mason Mount over the line. And if you're a club and Liverpool come to you now trying to sign a midfielder, having sold 1 or 2 players to Saudi, you're going, you've got that money there. We're not selling him on the cheap. We know it's not a case of you being the paupers anymore. You've got a bit to spend, and you're going to be desperate. Liverpool have had these options now. 2 players they could lose on the eve of them going to Germany for pre-season. That's not part of the planning. That's not what they thought was going to happen. Yeah, it was a long-term succession where you'd gradually ease Henderson out, Fabinho further down the line, Thiago goes at the end of his contract. But to have it all suddenly going in one summer, no one will have seen this coming. It's very strange and something that Liverpool got to get a hold of quickly. Otherwise, they're going to have completely different midfield woes, but it'll be a mess again this season.
Yeah, I mean, Gorst, you look at the reaction on social media, and it's pretty much sell, isn't it? Everyone's saying, take the offer and run. Pretty much for Fabinho, Henderson. I think you probably find a similar sentiment for Thiago. But I mean, this is a very real dilemma, isn't it? You mentioned before, and Theo's just mentioned, Lavia was a target, but Lavia felt like a succession plan for Liverpool with learning alongside Fabinho. But isn't another issue is that this is happening at a time when Liverpool aren't really at their strongest ebb. I mean, they're not Champions League finalists. They're not coming off just winning the league or just challenging. They're finished 5th. They're not in the Champions League. They are trying to rebuild. I mean, it'd be one thing if they could go out and spend all this money on a Declan Rice and compete for those types of players, but it doesn't feel like they're doing that. So it's a really tough dilemma, isn't it?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, interest in Lavia kind of predates any potential offer from Al Ittihad or Al Etihad for either Henderson or Fabinho. So maybe the best later plans need to be changed if either of those players go. And I think that involves a bit more of an experienced, more dependable, more sure thing than a 19-year-old who's just come off, albeit a good individual season, but at a team who were relegated. Now that opens itself up to a different type of profile, a different type of cost, essentially. And who those players would be, I'm not sure at this point. But certainly if Liverpool are to lose either or Fabinho or Henderson, you need to be looking at players who are going to just slot in, and top class players who aren't.
They've got to come straight in, haven't they? They've got to.
Yeah.
Who starts in Liverpool's midfield next season?
Well, Tchouameni, for example, they wanted him 12 months ago, didn't he? Before it was accepted early on that he wanted Real Madrid. I always thought that kind of interest was overblown a little bit, but certainly Liverpool would have liked them in an ideal world. You know that they were massively keen on Jude Bellingham, another one who went to Real Madrid. So they need to be looking at a similar sort of level for me if either of those two go. And I think it's a case of looking to do it if one of them goes. Fabinho stays put and Henderson goes, they still need to be of that mindset where they need the top quality operator to come in, because not only are they losing players who've won it all at Liverpool the last 4 or 5 years, they're losing plenty of experience at a time when the rest of the squad is very inexperienced, the rest of the midfield. Curtis Jones, 22, Harvey Elliott's 20, Bachet's still 18. Szoboszlai's 22, McAllister's only 24. So they will need a little bit more of experience and quality in there if one or two of those players leave.
You can't sell. I mean, I've just got this written down on my pad, but and I think people will disagree. And if you do, comment away in the comments on YouTube. But you can't sell everyone, can you, Theo? You can't just sell a whole midfield at once and bring a whole new midfield in and say, right, let's start with that.
No, you can't. You just need to look at Chelsea and how many players they've brought in over the last 12 months. Now it's just not worked for them. Compare that to Liverpool with their succession plan in attack. It was bringing Diaz in one window, bringing Núñez in the next window, bringing Gakpo the window after that. Mane goes one summer, Firmino goes the next summer, and you've got Salah and Jota tied down to long-term contracts. It was gradual. They weren't putting all the money into one thing, and they could build these relationships on the pitch. Like Diaz went straight into that starting 11, clicked with everyone, but it meant he was in that so much stronger position to fully take that role when Mane moved on. And Gakpo's now had 6 months. He's already started to build those relationships, and it looks like a really promising attack. And he's going to do the same with Firmino moving on. And Núñez, obviously, jury's still out a little bit. We still had a year under his belt at Liverpool. And it's like, yep, you can be really happy with those 5 attacking options. But if you're now going this midfield, you're going to have to just build it up from scratch with Alexis McAllister, when it's the biggest club of his career, even though he's won the World Cup with Argentina. He's still not played with these players before. He's not played at Anfield before for Liverpool. That pressures that come with that. And if he's the experienced midfielder, the only one who's got that much Premier League experience, that's even more pressure on him. Szoboszlai's never played at this level before. Yes, it looks like he's absolutely smashing the running tests and everything in pre-season. Like, he looks like a real athlete. But it's one thing doing that when you're unchallenged, but doing it in the depths of Premier League football when everything's on top and it's always more intense, that's another challenge as well. So Naby Keita, he struggled with that physicality. That's something he admitted, and I think our former colleague James Pearce covered in great detail in one of his pieces when Keita left the club. It's like, well, if you then got these two, Curtis Jones is your next best optional. Harvey Elliott, who's still 20, has his ups and downs. Besetic, as good as he is, as good as he's shown himself to be, Klopp himself said he's an adult in a boy's body. It's like, he feels like you need that middle ground there. Like, Liverpool were longing to have those middle options last year to bridge the gap between experience and the raw potential. And it's all very well getting rid of the experience, but when you're just left with that raw potential, it's just sink or swim for those players, and it could be detrimental to them in the long term. Like, this isn't going to be a case of Liverpool just going to pick it up and be back to basics like they were 2 years ago, go for another quadruple. They need something in the middle to gradually ease this transition period for the next midfield. And while you could see Jones really thrive with that responsibility, it's an awful, really big gamble to take.
One thing I would say about this season, this pre-season summer, is, you know, we've given Liverpool loads of credit over the last few years for kind of being 1 or 2 steps ahead and, you know, certainly planning for certain things, and it's worked out quite well. But at the moment, it feels like they are not necessarily doing a bad job, because I think Szoboszlai and McAllister are 2 fantastic additions, and I can't wait to see them next season. But it feels
moved so
like
quickly and got them done really efficiently.
Yeah, but it feels like it's a bit more on the fly now. They're kind of reacting to things and waiting to see how things play out, and you know, not everything can be massively planned for and whatever else, and that is obviously fair enough. But big questions are being asked of them now. You know, how are they planning to replace Henderson? Can they keep him? Do they want to sell Fabinho? Have they got a kind of contingency plan in place? And I mean, if nothing else, it's interesting for stuff that's going off the field. We know they're going to fly to Germany for the pre-season on Saturday, and it's going to be exciting seeing Szoboszlai and McAllister in action going forward next week. But off the pitch, they're just kind of having to react to things now, which hasn't always been the way for Liverpool. Have normally planned ahead, and it's a bit different. But you know, they've still got credits in the bank for what has gone before them in the last few weeks with Szoboszlai and McAllister, who, as I say, I think are 2 superb additions. But they need more of the same ilk, I think.
What adds to that is when you knew Sadio Mane was going, Emre Can, Gini Wijnaldum, Philippe Coutinho, there was months' notice there. The club knew we were going to need to get a replacement, and they could do lots of preparation. You're not telling me that Jordan Henderson and Fabinho, when they left Southampton, thought, this could be my last appearance for the club. They were fully invested in, they're going to go again next season, and then Saudi interest has just come out of absolutely nowhere, and heads of perhaps are going to be turned by those big wages on offer. Like, you can have all the issues with the backdrop of Saudi Arabia and where it's all come. But if you go to any individual, we're going to offer you £700,000 a week, you're going to be tempted. So you can understand why they would look around that, and then it comes down to morals. But that shows it's just come out of nowhere. Money talks, and it's an ugly side of the game, something that we don't necessarily like to see. but it could leave Liverpool playing catch-up when they have been, as Gorsty said, so organised and so prepared in the past.
Yeah, I mean, is this chaotic nature of perhaps Liverpool's transfers at the moment, is that just not a natural thing, Gorsty, when you come to the end of a cycle, players are getting to a certain age where Fabinho is a great example of someone who's 29. I don't think anyone, maybe few people, but I don't think a lot of people would have been saying going into the summer, sell Fabinho. But if you get the right offer, but like Theo says, we didn't have a Saudi Arabia offering big money for players, so it was unlikely a European club was going to come along and say, have 40 million, which is basically what you paid for him 5 years ago. Have that now. I mean, is it not just a natural thing? Liverpool come. Emre Can, for example, when he left Liverpool, you weren't really, with the respect to Emre Can, you weren't really worried that much about who's going to replace him because you always thought they'd get better. Coutinho felt like a bit of a luxury in the team at the time. Liverpool are sort of coming from a high level coming down. Is what I've just said. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I think the pool of players capable of improving Liverpool is deeper than it has been for a number of years because when they were champions of Europe and they were champions of England, when they were just coming off a team that almost won the quadruple and won the 2 domestic cups, you're talking about an elite player there to slot into that team and displace one of the 11. But given the season he's just come off, certainly in midfield, I reckon we could ask us 3 and then 7 others. 10 different Liverpool first choice midfields and you get 8 or 9 different answers just because.
I thought you were about to say you could put us in midfield there.
Yeah.
Felt like how bad it was last year at some point.
I'd do a job in the Saudi Pro League for a couple of weeks.
I think Theo's going to have to sit. Actually, Theo's got a bit of engine on and kicks people, doesn't he?
I can't move anymore.
That's why I'm the sitter. Of course, he's like box to box, he's powerhouse.
I think it... no.
I think I'd literally be
sitting
if I
had
to do any movement.
I think I'm going to have to sit, aren't I? I think I sit. Theo covers a bit.
You can
get on the end of things. Sorry.
You can moderate in the middle.
Well, that's it. I've got to moderate, yeah.
But
thank you.
I mean, on specifically Henderson, at the time we're recording this, things might have changed, but Liverpool yet to receive any offers from Saudi Arabia or elsewhere. Poised or braced, I guess is the phrase, but until Liverpool have a decision to make, they're not planning to make one, if that doesn't sound a bit odd. Talks with Klopp going to be informal if any are held, and it's basically seems to be in Henderson's court at the moment, so we'll wait and see what happens on that score. Maybe there's a bit of a change of heart from the way it tends to be leaning at the moment, but we'll see. It'd be a shame to see him go in these circumstances so suddenly, so shockingly, but we'll wait and see because
we'll talk Henderson in a minute. I'm the moderator here, Gorsty. Don't forget, I'm the moderator. So we'll talk Henderson in a minute, but before we do, just want to put you both on the spot. 40 million for Fabinho. Are you taking it or not?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to say depends, but I'm the moderator, so I decide. So Henderson, I mean, just plenty to talk about Henderson. You've just touched on him there, Gorsty. So I'll let you expand on that. I mean, it just throws up a lot of feelings, doesn't it, really, I suppose, this? I mean, in some ways, isn't it, if you want to be cold about it, he's 33. His best years are behind him. If you get decent money for him, you might move him on, but it's so much more complicated than that, isn't it?
It is, yeah. There's loads of off-the-field situations. If it was kind of a normal transfer, you'd maybe see a little bit of logic in it if the money was to be reinvested, but it sounds like Al Ettifaq are trying to get him on the cheap, and Liverpool shouldn't be doing them any favours, but I've got a sneaky suspicion that they will. Unfortunately, I think a lot of that will be down to the goodwill of the player and the relationship there, but I just don't see the point in Liverpool happily waving off the captain for peanuts. It's not going to be reinvested into a midfield rebuild. It needs to be a significant sum if they're going to be happy to lose him. He's still got 2 years left on his contract, and that's even before you go into the situation, the fact that he's a Rainbow Laces ambassador, and that jars hugely with the fact that same-sex marriages are still illegal in Saudi Arabia. That is difficult to square on Henderson's part, and I think he would probably owe an explanation to certain fan groups and certain people if that was to transpire. But until it does, I suppose we can only speculate on that. But it's, as someone once wrote, a loaded and thorny issue.
It is a loaded and thorny issue. Theo, what are your initial feelings on the whole thing?
If it was an offer from, say, Inter Miami, David Beckham was going to offer him £400,000 a week, come and live in the sun, play with Lionel Messi, partner Sergio Busquets, no one has any issues. But because it's Saudi Arabia, and because he has been such an ambassador for so many issues in football over the years, from LGBT, as Gorsty's just said, the NHS stuff in the pandemic, that there's so many, we could go on and on, like food banks and everything. He is that perfect role model in European football. If there's an issue and something difficult needed to be said, Henderson was the one there saying it. He was the one who was leading the WhatsApp groups with the captains and all of this. He's always been this like role model that everyone looks up to. You think, yes, this is who we can inspire to. This is who we can look behind and go, oh, we don't need to worry about Jordan Henderson. He's the perfect platform. But it just seems like, well, if he's being tempted by money, who else will be? It's like, are those morals really going out the window because you're being offered such a fee that anyone would consider? Like, that's why you take the backdrop out of it. You can't begrudge him being tempted by that sort of money. It's like, how hollow were those words that you said? What means more to you? Because you're still on 190,000 a week, something like that. And that's more than the majority of people in this country are earning when times it's so hard, when mortgage rates are going up, when it's harder to buy food and all this. I will say, though, with the transfer fees, Saudi Arabia is one of the clubs that isn't the Big Four. Like, only one club, I think, in Saudi Arabia this summer outside of the Big Four has actually spent money on a player, and that was 1.2 million on a midfielder. So you can see Ruben Neves go for nearly 50 million, but that's still an Al Hilal. This is, if it's going to happen.
Isn't that because, I could be wrong here, isn't it just they feel like something I've read, but PIF only own several of the bigger clubs, don't
I think when Theo says the Big Four, he means the clubs that are owned by the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia.
They are the Big Four now, aren't they?
Well, yeah, but you make it sound like it's old school top four Champions League places.
Well, they will be soon enough, won't they? The Saudi Arabian or Asian Champions League.
But they're coming for the Club World Cup.
Like those big clubs, when you think of the transfers for, who we got Neves, Koulibaly, Mendy,
Benzema.
That was a free transfer.
You mean fees?
The ones they spent fees on. It's like 155 million spending spree. It's going to get bigger. Like if Fabinho and Henderson go, that's up to 200 million, and that's just going to rise more and more. Like if you can go into a Liverpool Premier League team who, granted, didn't have the best season, but are challengers, and say we will take two of your previously first choice midfielders, and there's nothing you can do about it, then who else are they going to look at? It's just baffling, and it's so much money is being thrown about, and it just seems that money talks. Like as much as the wages that footballers are on now is big in this country, it is got so much more there. All these heads are going to get turned. It completely changes the landscape, and it's just, surely when you're on so much though, you don't need that much more. Like morals need to speak for something.
That's it. And I keep hearing this money talks and life change. People saying it's life-changing figures. It's not okay. It will make Jordan Henderson's life even better, but I mean, it's not. We're not talking about a working person who's earning, I don't know, mid-20s, early 30s, and is going out and having a life-changing figure that will set their family up and their grandkids. This is a man who earns a hell of a lot of money, and I'm going to be honest. I will be very, very, very disappointed in Jordan Henderson. I've been disappointed in Liverpool. I'd be disappointed in the people around Henderson. If he moves there, I think there's a big red line around LGBT issues, which he's represented, he's spoken about, he's been quite strong about, and there is a red line that he cannot cross now. And I just think if he goes out there is no explanation for me that will make it right, because how can you feel like that and then go to a country where those issues are illegal?
I totally agree, and even from like a practical point of view. When are you going to spend this money? Because I'm pretty sure since Steven Gerrard retired, there's not been much of a down period where he thinks, the money that he earned from his career, he can relax and settle for. He went into coaching, he went into management, and that is the life of a football man, isn't it? Football person. It's not the days of 30 years ago where you'd retire and you go and buy a nightclub in Magaluf or whatever. Footballers just don't do that anymore. They remain in the game, and then as a result, it doesn't matter what you've earned. You're a millionaire X amount of times over anyway. So, it'd be difficult to square with me just solely as a financial thing, which it is, because no one's going there to play in the the Saudi Pro League, are they? Let's face it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he'll want to change perceptions, that sort of thing, but I just don't think that with all the best will in the world, Jordan Henderson can go over and change perceptions. It doesn't work like that, and To
we
me,
just need to look at
just a red
there's
line.
that Qatari journalist, wasn't there, the other week? He was the one who was saying respect our beliefs, respect our morals before the World Cup, and then Barcelona did an LGBT social post. I can't remember the actual basics of it, and then he just said it was horrific or something. He completely tore into it on social media. It's like, hang on, a few months ago you were saying we need to respect your morals. It works both ways. It's just he's going to this climate, if he does take the move, where their minds aren't going to be changed. Like they've just had in that area of the world, 2022 World Cup, and there's all the controversy around that still. These beliefs haven't changed. They're not going to change overnight. And throwing money at them so they can buy what they want, it's just like they're in charge of football now. They're deciding who's going where. If this is the way this market is going, that's not going to change anything either because they've got exactly what they want. Jordan Henderson going, and he won't be able to wear rainbow laces. He won't be able to wear a rainbow captain's armband. If he speaks about it, he's going to get a stern telling off at the very least. It's punishable, potentially. You don't know how strict they want to be. They're going to try and silence him from having these views. And we've seen it in some sports. Like I'm a big Formula One fan. Lewis Hamilton, Sebastian Vettel, whenever they make these big statements, they get a serious telling off from the FIA. They get a big fan. Like they don't want to speak out against what the money is from the likes of Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and all these countries. But they're in a place where, we're only there 1 week a year. Yeah. We can just go back and home. We've got that safety. If you're going to move your whole family over there, you do not have that safety. And that's something else that needs to be considered here. If you want to be an ambassador and actually speak up and be a voice, at this moment in time, it's not exactly a safe environment to do it.
I mean, I think as well, let's not forget, Jordan Henderson hasn't said anything at the moment. He hasn't accepted a move. He hasn't signed for them. He hasn't even said either way. But I do think there is an issue here that he's allowing this.
Yeah.
He's allowing. Yeah. He clearly is interested because if he wasn't, he's had every opportunity to say he isn't. And the fact that he's even considering it, I think, is disappointing.
Yeah.
And I am disappointed. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I know for a fact there's been opportunities for it to be nipped in the bud over the last few days, and that the opportunity hasn't been taken. So I agree with you, yeah.
If this is a ploy for him to be more valued by Liverpool, then I'm not really sure what's going on because, again, Liverpool have got every opportunity to make him feel valued. I mean, he is valued. He's valued by the people that matter at the club. The manager couldn't value him any higher. I mean, there's other thing, and again, these aren't Jordan Henderson's words, so I don't want to put words in his mouth, but there's talk that he doesn't want to be, do a James Milner type role for Liverpool. But even that annoys me because I feel like, what is wrong with the James Milner role? James Milner has played a massive part in the success Liverpool have had over the last few years. He is respected among Liverpool fans and people at the club, beyond measure. He has been a key part. And if Jordan Henderson can play that part for Liverpool in the next 2, 3, 4 years, keep himself fit, play games in midfield, help young players come through, then that will mean more to Liverpool than him playing 38 games this season. He's 33. He's got to accept that you're not going to be the same player you were when you're 26, 27. Yeah. So I just find the whole situation pretty disappointing. And, I'd like Liverpool to pull him in and say, we value you. You're staying here. You're our captain. We need someone to lead the club. And people might say otherwise. I know there's a lot of strong opinions about Henderson, but you need strong personalities. You need people that set examples, and Henderson's done that for many years. And the idea of losing him on every level, I'm pretty annoyed about it, really.
Yeah, I think the kind of personal and private aspects to it all is the most important of it all. Theo's just touched on it there, and we've mentioned the issues around the fact that he's a huge ambassador of the Rainbow Laces campaign and all that kind of stuff. But from a purely playing perspective as well, he's going to put his European Championships spot in the England squad in doubt because Gareth Southgate, with the best will in the world, is not going to learn a whole lot from watching El Atafaki games against whoever it's going to be.
It's not like he's going to Brighton and playing 38 games in the Premier League.
Yeah, exactly. And also as well, is he going to stand out in that league? Henderson's at his best when the intensity's up, the atmosphere's up. Mm-hmm. It's 110 miles an hour. It's a big game. It's being watched around the world. That's when he kind of is at his best, and it's with the best in the world. This league just isn't that, is it? So he's just going to look like a bit of an ordinary midfielder, which will just be a sad end to a decorated career, really.
He's making assumptions too about his Liverpool career if he does choose to make it. Like, You think he's still, at the moment, you finished the season first choice in that Liverpool midfield. Granted, you could say he's not in your first choice now. Everyone's on form, everyone's fit. You go into your last game of the season, you win the Premier League, or you get into the Champions League or your Europa League final. Henderson, on paper, probably doesn't start. But he's not at that situation yet. Liverpool never have 3 midfielders starting every single game. There is so much rotation. Like Klopp said it himself when addressing Naby Keita. Go and look at how many big games he started. And he was only playing like half a season. Thiago only plays half a season. Milner still had a big impact in big games. Without playing, he went until he was 37. Like he still was, 40, 50 appearances last year. It was just the first time where the starts were that much lower. Henderson's not at that stage yet. He will still start games. There will be rotation.
I think Henderson would start the opening game of the season. I'd be surprised if he didn't. If he stays.
Yeah,
exactly. It's like you compare it to when Steven Gerrard went to LA Galaxy. He was on the bench against Real Madrid in the Bernabeu. He had the conversations with Rodgers and said, "Yeah, we are going to limit your game time."
He was also out of contract.
He was out of contract. Maybe something like that has been said behind the scenes between Henderson and Klopp. You're not going to start as much, but he's not soft. He knows he is going to start games. There is going to be rotation. It's what has been the case every single season for Liverpool, pretty much since Klopp took over. Like, they always had so many good midfielders. Like we talk now, they've got 8 or 9 midfielders going into the new season, depending on what you classify trends as. They need them. Like, all the injuries they have had, they have needed those options. You have 3 starting midfielders. If you put Trent in there, now you have 4. You need at least 2 midfields. And there's going to be games, there's going to be starts. If you're saying, McAllister's maybe not clicked 100%, or Szoboszlai's taking a bit of time to settle, you put him in for Merseyside derby. You put him in to face Manchester United for Manchester City. That experience counts for something.
I think he would have played in the 6th role as well a little bit more this season.
Also as well, back yourself if that is the issue. If he's worried about game time, you're a legendary figure at the club. Been there 12 years, been there, done that, won it all.
It's in the shape of his life as well.
He should be in, those videos he put out on social media, he's looking like he's going to fight for the cruiserweight title, doesn't he, more than playing midfield? So it felt like the message was ammo for the fight, quite literally. Let's bring on the season. But maybe he's had second thoughts. Yeah. Well,
we'll see what happens, and I think we shouldn't rush to judgment. Let's see whether he stays at the club. But again, I'll put you on the spot. 10, 15 million for Henderson. Are you selling him or not? No. It's
just not worth it. I think.
No.
From a purely business point of view, you do sell him. I think if you think you can get a good replacement in, you can see why he might want to take that move for that money. But it's not just about business here. There are so many other things that come into it. It's what is right. What is the image there? What voice do you want to have? What do you want to send out as your message to the footballing world?
Yeah.
And while it might make sense for Liverpool in terms of, we can now have that room to go and sign a Lavia, if you're keeping Fabinho, you've got that replacement. It's still, you're losing a lot in terms of your captain when you've already lost your vice captain. It just, like Gorsty said, it's not worth it. It's more than the basics, numbers and everything that goes into it and what you're going to get from him in a few years going forward.
Yeah,
I think if you're offering me the same money for Fabinho and Henderson, I think I'd keep Fabinho. But I don't think Liverpool are getting anywhere near 40 million for Henderson that they might get for Fabinho.
To me, it's more... I mean, I just don't like the idea of
it goes beyond that. I get that. Purely from a football tactical point of view or whatever. Then
transfer-wise, we'll give them more to spend to if both go, because they are on those bigger wages. Like, if you think back to when FSG first came in, they were spending big fees at the time, for that time of period, when it was, you can get Andy Carroll for 35 million, club record. Henderson was 20, Downing was 20, but that's because they weren't on these massive wages. So you think if you do lose these 2 players, you could go and compete for a Caicedo or something like that. You could maybe go, we'll pay 40 million for Levi Colwill, or we'll pay 50 million for Romeo Lavia, just because you've got that burn in your pocket a bit more. But still, experience counts for something. It's, like I just said, it's more than money here. It's more than the basics. There's so much more to it that will make it a lot more complicated. And if it does happen, a lot of people have plenty to say about it.
I think as well, when you're in transition and you have these big characters and club legends, you look back at United. Obviously, Roy Keane went in very difficult circumstances for them. That hit them hard that year. But they transitioned slowly, didn't they? Beckham left, Roy Keane, Gary Neville stayed a lot longer.
Van
I
Nistelrooy.
think you need them. Sorry?
Van Nistelrooy.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you rip the Milners, the Hendersons, others out of the club in one go, I think it can be quite difficult for others. I'm not saying, Liverpool have got Trent, they've got Robertson, they've got Alisson Becker, Van Dijk, Salah. They've got some big personalities there, but losing Mane, losing Henderson, losing, I think there's a process to it, and I don't think I've ever seen a club rip that band-aid off. Band-aid? Am I American? Band-aid plaster off at once, and survive and do well.
I think people roll their eyes at it a little bit because essentially they don't see it. But this is a team that's been together for a good number of years now, hasn't it? You know, apart from one or two leaving at certain points, still the nucleus of the squad that won the Champions League 4 years ago, won the league 3 years ago. So to lose this many of them in the same summer, you know, even Oxlade-Chamberlain and Keita and certainly Firmino and most definitely Milner, and then Henderson on top of that, and maybe Fabinho. The culture that's been kind of instilled around the place, the day-to-day, how you conduct yourselves, how you train, how you prepare, all that kind of stuff. A
very real example is the lactate test. No one would be talking about the lactate test
if
it wasn't for James Milner dominating it year after year and setting standards. And now look at it, we're all looking this year going, who's going to win the lactate test? And you can tell that those players, that means something. Yeah. They want to push themselves to those limits. And you have someone like Salah, who again, look at the standards that man is set.
Yeah, and then you get the likes of Trent cutting short his summer holiday to go and work out in Portland with, you know, doing all that kind of pre-season conditioning stuff. Henderson himself did it. Alisson was doing it in Brazil. He was working on it. It comes from the culture within the players, doesn't it? And to lose that many in the one season is difficult to replace on the pitch, I'm sure.
I think if the transfer window closed today, you'd say you'd be a bit disappointed Liverpool haven't got a third midfielder or got that centre back. But you think, yeah, they can have a go for the title. They will be in the top four. They'll have a really good go in the Europa League. They will make sure that the transitional period was as brief as possible. And you've got enough experience there to pass on the baton to make sure that the slow succession works. If you lose these 2-3 players and you rip them out the spine completely, you're basically throwing it at the wall and seeing what comes up. You're relying on the new signings to immediately just bed in and click. You're relying on the youngsters to step up more than ever before. It could happen. But then it's also a big gamble. Like when Jurgen Klopp said he'd like to take more risks in the transfer market, this isn't what he meant at all. So it's one where you are relying on a lot of things to fall into place, and it's not worth it. Like you think all these players go and it doesn't work, then the pressure's on. It's like the fans going, why did you sell Fabinho? Why did you sell Jordan Henderson? Like you'd feel a lot more comfortable going into the season with these players than if you didn't. Like you'd say, Liverpool can compete for the title this season with them. Without them, depending on who they're going to bring in, you think, it could be another difficult, long season because it only takes a couple of injuries. You're down to the bare bones. Youngsters don't have the physicality, the durability to play to the highest level week in, week out. It's just leaving so much up in the air, and you are just relying on being able to bring someone in. And suddenly you're in the market for some of these top midfielders, Tchouaméni, a Valverde, or a Caicedo. You're going for Lavia, and that's another gamble in
Famously,
itself.
Liverpool don't get injuries either, do they? So they'll be all right on that score.
That's it. I suppose if you're coming in, you're getting again, if you go back to Declan Rice, you bring a Declan Rice, who's captain West Ham, seems to be a high ebb in his career, and seems to be some sort of personality. I kind of get it, but yeah, you know, for a young lad like Lavia and asking him to come in and replace a Fabinho, it just seems too much. I mean, I think the other thing I'd say, just responding to what you said before, Gorsty, about some people don't value. I think the people that don't value the Hendersons of this world are the ones that just, you know, they think Everton's football manager, that stats on a page and a name, and you just swap him out and get another one with better stats. But there's so much more that goes into it, and successful teams have successful personalities, and they're, you know, I think Frank Lampard was talking about it in a podcast today about bar raisers and bar lowerers, he called them, and you know, that man knows what he's talking about in terms of big personalities and a big side. You know,
maybe not as a manager,
but certainly as a player, and I'm convinced that one of the reasons Liverpool have been so successful is the likes of Henderson, Milner, and others dragging them up. A quick word on Thiago before we start finishing off.
Not him as well. He's not going, is he?
I mean, well, I was going to say, Gus, is kind of bubbling under the surface. Is all this initial talk about Saudi Arabian clubs coming for a Liverpool midfielder started with Thiago. So I feel like there could be a chance that this rears its head again in the near future. Or do you feel like that's been put to bed?
Tough on that because it's only early, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
It's only early in the summer window, really.
And he's only been back at he came back, didn't he, Saturday? He was dressed in his own clothes. We've not seen him training yet, have we?
No.
So he's either clearly not fit. Or...
Yeah, well, he only had surgery in May, didn't he? Liverpool took that decision for him to go under the knife early, so he would be fit for the start of the season. But obviously, we haven't even been back at pre-season less than a week yet, so I'm not too concerned on that score. But yeah, again, I think it was another Athletic piece, wasn't it, that wrote he's turned down a proposal from Saudi Arabia. Whether that was the same club who are now looking at Fabinho, based on this idea that they can't get Thiago, we're not sure. But maybe George Schmax is just ringing around the clubs in Saudi Arabia saying, do you fancy Fabinho, do you fancy Thiago, do you fancy Endo?
Joel Matip's next.
Yeah, and seeing if he gets any bites. It's crazy, isn't it, what's going on? All things at the moment point towards Thiago wanting to stay, but there is interest from Turkey as well. I think Fenerbahce are taking a look, aren't they? Don't see the point of a moving to Turkey, if I'm honest. I think you can, through gritted teeth, see why a player might want to go and quadruple his salary in the Middle East for 2 years, but a move to Turkey probably don't pay Premier League wages, certainly not the wages he's on at Liverpool. Don't really see that one happening, but stranger things have happened. But at the moment, Liverpool planning for life with him as part of the ranks, and I hope so as well.
You're a big Thiago fan, aren't you?
Yeah, he's Liverpool's best midfielder. If he's fit and fired. I think Liverpool got a full complement of players fit, and they're playing in the Champions League final next week. He's in my starting 11.
Yeah, so you'd keep him then?
Yeah.
Theo?
Would I keep him?
Would you keep him?
Depends on the offer.
We've asked about I know we've probably asked this on pods, but we certainly have on pods before. But we've asked about Fabinho, we've asked about Henderson. You get a 20 millionaire from Saudi, and what are you saying to Thiago?
I'd sell him for 20 million. Getting your money back on him. Like, he's a very good player, but is he worth having as that luxury for half a season when you can't rely on him because you don't know when he's going to break down next, what games he's going to be available for, what he's not for. And if we're going into the season now with limited numbers, because you could be selling 2-3 more midfielders and we don't know who's coming in, then that's an even bigger risk. So
he's the one of the three, I'd say.
If he's staying, you're happy with that. He's a great squad option to have, but he's still not part of Liverpool's long-term future. And do you sell him now? Do you get him off the wage bill now and plan for that future? Out of the three, Henderson is the one you feel worst about going. Fabinho is the one you want to keep the most. But then Thiago is probably the one you're happiest about if you keep. There's different reasons for each of them here.
See, I'm of the opposite view, really. Apart from the predicament the Henderson deal itself poses, as a kind of conflict of interest and whatever else. I'd rather keep Thiago than Henderson.
Don't you think?
As a player.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I think if they sold Thiago, I would be comfortable with Liverpool going out and buying, say, Lavia.
Yeah.
And progressing. If they sell Fabinho, I think they need to go out and buy someone top class.
Moises Caicedo, someone of that.
Caicedo, Tchouaméni, someone like that. If they sell Henderson, well, I'd be disappointed for different reasons. Again,
just get
if
Lavia
they buy
again.
a younger midfielder, you're thinking progression.
I think the wage bill is less of an issue now, though, given that they've lost Firmino, who was one of the highest earners in Milner.
Milner took a pay cut by the time they finish this sum of the wage bill.
I know they've got one of the highest wage bills in football, and by the time we end this pod, they'll be one of the smallest in the Premier League. Fabinho would be another high earner, wouldn't he? Thiago certainly is. I think only possibly Salah earns more than him. Henderson again. If they lost all three of those, having lost who they've already lost, there's over $1 million a week there saved on wages. So that gives them loads of room to manoeuvre in terms of young players coming into the team. But I'm just not 100% convinced that Liverpool go and do what we feel would be necessary.
I'm still not convinced by Thiago in the new formation, though. We're not thinking 4-3-3 anymore. If it's that box formation, it's who fits into that. Henderson didn't really suit that right-sided defensive role.
No,
Thiago, I'm not convinced with him being in that deeper role instead of Fabinho alongside Trent. Doesn't have the legs for that. And he's not really the advanced one either. So it's like, are you going back to your traditional 4-3-3 and you can defend again, you can run again, or is it this new look formation? But if it's the new look formation, then it's still a very tweaked view of midfielders they can go for. Like, if it was still a traditional 4-3-3, you wouldn't expect him to get both Szoboszlai and McAllister in the same window. You'd expect it to be one or the other because they're that advanced role.
For what it's worth, I think they might play both quite a bit next season.
Yeah, I think they will in this new formation because you've got room for them both. But
I mean both formations.
Oh, both formations.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think we'll leave it there. It's been an interesting podcast. We'll be back on Monday to talk probably more Saudi bids for different players. but yeah, thanks for tuning in. Send us some feedback. Let us know whether you like it. Us being here at Lovelocks Cafe. And drop us an email, joe.rimmer@reachplc.com, or leave a comment on YouTube. See you then. Ciao.
You've been listening to the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.